What is going on, everybody? Welcome back into another Bracketology update and predictions here on this Tuesday, March 12th. And we are just 5 days away from finding out the field of 64 on Selection Sunday, which is this Sunday on March 17th. So, what we're always going to do, we're going to look at the latest Bracketology from ESPN's Joe Lenardi. And then after that, we'll be making our early predictions on who we think who will make it to the Final Four and cut down the nets down there in Phoenix, Arizona. So let's waste no time. Let's get right into the latest bracketology that was released early this morning. So really no changes to the top overall seed. I think that this is going to be the top overall seed that we see on Selection Sunday, barring really any miracles. I think that Purdue is definitely going to be your top overall seed heading into madness. Your first team out is Texas A&M, and your last team in is Indiana State right now. Indiana State took a big blow that they lost in the conference championship game against Drake. So that gives Drake the automatic qualifying bid, and that leaves Indiana State. Their resume, we'll see if it stands up to being a last team in. So Indiana State, the Sycamores are definitely going to be sweating out on Selection Sunday. They can't really do anything more to improve their resume. Let's go on now to the bubble watch. As we see, the last four byes are Michigan State out of the Big Ten, and then we see Seton Hall, TCU, Mississippi State. So those last four bye teams would avoid the play-in game, but in the play-in game would be the last four in. You see Colorado, Virginia, St. John's, and that's where you see Indiana State being the last team in. First four out is Texas A&M, New Mexico, Wake Forest, and Villanova. Next four out, I really think that these teams have to win at least two games to make a run or even win their conference championship to get into the dance, as you see Pittsburgh, Iowa, Providence, and Memphis. So as it stands, as you see there on the play-in games, you would have the two 16-seed matchups would be Norfolk State and Grambling State. Stetson is the automatic qualifier out of the ASUN, so they're locked to be in the tournament. They would face off against Merrimack in one of two matchups that we see in the 16-seed matchups. Then the 11-seed matchups will be St. John's going up against Indiana State, and then the next one would be Colorado and Virginia. The winners of all those would go into that 64-team bracket that we're going to be seeing in the first round. So let's move on region by region here. Let's see if there's any updates. There's probably going to be minimal updates since Lenardi's been updating this every single day throughout conference championship week. But we'll go through the risers and the fallers as we see here. First in the Midwest, you see Nevada move up to a 5. They were 6 in the last time that we saw in the bracketology. Charleston went up to a 15 to a 13. They were a 15, then a 14, and then now they're a 13 here on this Tuesday. They'll be playing in the conference championship. They got a big victory last night against Towson. James Madison, they're in the field now after beating Arkansas State in the Sun Belt Championship. So we'll see the Dukes. This is going to be a scary team as they are now an 11 seed. Some projected them as a 12, but Lenardi has them as an 11. Down to a 3. They were projected as a 2 seed, and then after their recent loss this past weekend, Florida down to a 7. They did have a bad loss last week against Vanderbilt, so you see them move from a 6 to a 7. Michigan State lost this past weekend as well to Indiana, so they moved down from a 9 to a 10. So you see Florida, Michigan State matching up there in the first round. Let's scroll on down to the West. As you see Stetson, like I just talked about them, they're already in the field. They're likely going to be in that play-in game. Right now, they would be against Merrimack. Gonzaga moves up to a 6. They continue to move up. They were on the bubble a couple of months ago, but now they're playing some great basketball. They have a big matchup in the West Coast Conference Championship game against St. Mary's. St. Mary's one loss in the conference, and that was to Gonzaga in the last regular season game. So really, that's the only change there. Gonzaga is the only risers. Stetson's the only faller, but as we mentioned, the Hatters are safely in the field. In the South, Colorado State moves up to a 9. They were originally a 10 seed, so the Rams picking up some wins as of late. Texas Tech moves down to a 7 seed. CBS had them as a 5. ESPN has them as a 7. So interested to see how it shapes out there on Sunday. Creighton is moving their way up. They were a 3 seed last time we checked this bracketology. They move up to a 2. So that's your risers and fallers in the South. Let's move on to the last one in the East. Longwood moves up to a 16 seed. Longwood is in the field. They won their conference championship matchup this past weekend. Boise State moves down to an 8. Boise was a 7 seed last time we checked. Now that they're 8 seed, Grand Canyon moves down to a 12 seed. Grand Canyon still alive in their conference tournament championship. Clemson down to a 6 seed. St. Mary's up to a 7. They have a big opportunity to move up if they can win the West Coast Conference Championship against Gonzaga, get another great quality win there. So that's your risers and fallers. Now, as we always do here on this Bracketology update, we're going to be making some predictions. So let's pull up this bracket here, and we're going to fill out our latest predictions. Leave it down in the comments who you think is going to make it to the Final Four based on these Bracketology predictions. Definitely want to hear what your thoughts are heading into Selection Sunday as well. So let's move on to the top left portion, is where we see the number 1 overall seed Purdue face off against Norfolk State and Grambling. I think that Grambling would win that matchup between those two teams, but I think that Purdue would slay some demons here. They lost to a 16 seed last year. I don't really see it happen again this year. I definitely think that Purdue this is definitely their year. You know, we've seen it in the past. Virginia, they lost to 16 seed UMBC and they won it all. Maybe Purdue does the same here. They definitely have the talent to go far. 8 and 9 matchup, Texas and FAU. This is a tough 8-9. I think that both of these teams are starting to play some better basketball. Two inconsistent teams, too. I mean, Texas and FAU, they've just been on a roller coaster ride. But I am going to go with Texas in this matchup. I think that this would be a great matchup, but I am going to go with the Longhorns. 5 in the 12 seed, Nevada and Richmond. I'm going to go with Nevada in this one. I think that Richmond would definitely provide a scare, but the Wolfpack will advance. 4 seed Auburn and 13 seed Charleston. I think that Charleston might be one of those popular picks to pull off the upset here. But I just don't see it with this Auburn team. I think that Auburn, they definitely need to make a deep run here, build some momentum, going into this field. So I think that Auburn pulls it out here. We have a 6 and 11 matchup, Washington State and 11 seed James Madison, and this will be my first upset. Give me the Dukes to pull off the upset against Washington State. Washington State, really great season for them in the Pac-12. But James Madison, they're going to be one of my favorite teams to pull off the upset in round number 1, maybe even go a little bit farther if they can get a good draw. 3 seed Iowa State, 14 seed Oakland. I don't think that Iowa State is going to have any trouble in this matchup. Their defense is too tough, and I think that, they did suffer a not so great of a performance against Kansas State. Kansas State is on the bubble. We didn't even see them either in the first 4 out, the next 4 out. But they would probably have to win their conference tournament to get into the tournament. So we'll see. So 7 seed Florida, 10 seed Michigan State. I just can't figure out both of these teams. In my opinion, I was really high on Florida, but they're just coming off of the loss against Vanderbilt. So it's an up and down team for both of them, but I am going to go with Florida getting this 7 and 10 matchup. So we have a 2 and a 15 with Marquette and Quinnipiac. I'm going to go with Marquette in this one. We'll see what if Tyler Kolek returns to the Big East tournament for Marquette to go on a little bit of a run. To not really improve their team, they're probably locked in to a 2 seed there, but to build some momentum towards the big tournament coming up. Then we have our second round matchups here in the Midwest, Purdue and Texas. I don't think that Purdue has any troubles here. I think that the Boiler train moves on. 5 seed Nevada, 4 seed Auburn. I'm going to continue to go chalk here. I'm going to go with Auburn. And this is a tough matchup for me. I think that James Madison would give Iowa State all this trouble. And you know what? Let's pull off the upset here. I think that the Dukes are one of those teams, that double-digit seed that can go on a little run here. So go with James Madison. And then we have 7 seed Florida, 2 seed Marquette. I think that this will be a great matchup. Depending on which Florida team shows up, I think that Florida can pull off the upset, but they're just too inconsistent for me to go on a run. I think that Marquette, just a better team overall than Florida. Purdue and Auburn, I am going to pull off the upset here. I've been one of those advocates. I just don't know. Purdue scares me. They're don't get me wrong. They're a very talented team. But I don't know, man. I just can't pick them to go far. I'm definitely liking the way that Auburn's been playing down the stretch. So give me the 4 and the 1. Got to go with some upsets. It's not going to be all one seeds making it to the Final Four. You really never see that happen. So you got to go with a little bit of chaos. And then 11 seed James Madison, 2 seed Marquette. It was a great run for the Dukes, but I think it ends here. Give me Marquette to advance in this one. So we have a 4 seed and a 2 seed out of the Midwest here in the Elite Eight. And give me Marquette in this one. If they're healthy, Marquette is definitely one of those teams that can go far. So give me Marquette to advance to the Final Four. Let's go on now to where we see another Big East team involved. That is the defending national champs, the UConn Huskies. They go up against number 16 seed. Give me UConn. UConn, you're not going to want to see this team wherever, whatever. It's the first round, second round, or whatever. This is a team that's looking very scary. 8 seed Boise State, 9 seed Nebraska. Give me the Cornhuskers in this one. I think that they get their first win in March in a very long time. 5 seed South Carolina, 12 seed Grand Canyon. Grand Canyon is definitely going to be one of those 12 seeds that I look out here, but I just don't really like the matchup. Give me the Gamecocks to move on here. 4 seed Kansas, 13 seed Samford. Kansas is one of those teams that's on the downward spiral. Samford is one of those 13 seeds that could really pull off the upset here. But I think that Kansas survives at least one more round. So give me the Jayhawks to move on. 6 seed Clemson, St. John's, and Indiana State. That would be a great matchup in the playing game. I'm going to go with St. John's and give me St. John's to pull off this upset here. I think that whoever wins that one could definitely beat Clemson. I think that St. John's with Rick Pitino as their head coach, I think that they could definitely pull off a shock. And I feel like every year there's always that play-in winner makes a deep run. We saw it last year with Pittsburgh making it to the Sweet 16. So we'll see if it happens again. 3 seed Kentucky and 14 seed Morehead State. Kentucky really playing some great basketball. Got a huge win against Tennessee out there in Knoxville. So Kentucky has a real opportunity to maybe even make it to the 2 line if they win the SEC championship. 7 seed St. Mary's, 10 seed TCU. It's really hard to pick this one, but I mean, St. Mary's has really dominated the West Coast Conference, has some great wins to their resume. So give me St. Mary's to beat TCU. TCU is heading in the wrong direction as well. And then North Carolina Colgate. I mean, Colgate's one of those teams where they always give you a scare, but I think that North Carolina has too much experience to go out in the first round here. So give me North Carolina. And then we have our second round matchups here in the East, UConn and Nebraska. I think that UConn lives on another day. So give me the Huskies. And then South Carolina, Kansas. This is where I have Kansas's run ending. Give me South Carolina to move on to the Sweet 16. And then St. John's and Kentucky, the Rick Pitino Bowl pretty much here with St. John's and Kentucky. Give me the Cats moving on to the Sweet 16. And then St. Mary's and North Carolina. I think this would be a fantastic matchup, but I think that North Carolina gets by here. UConn and South Carolina. This would also be a great game, but I got to go with the defending champs to move on another day. And then Kentucky, North Carolina, a blue blood matchup here in the Sweet 16. Give me the Cats out of the SEC to move on and beat North Carolina to advance. And then UConn and Kentucky would be a great matchup here, but you got to go with the champs. They really are looking like an elite basketball team. I think that they're going to be a tough to beat. You're going to really have to play your best game of the season to take them down. So give me UConn. So we have our top portion of the bracket filled out. Now let's go on to the bottom left where we have number 1 seed Tennessee facing off against Stetson and Merrimack. Give me Stetson to win that one, but I think that the Volunteers survive against the number 16 seed. Then we have Dayton and Oklahoma. Give me Dayton to win that one. We'll see if Dayton can make some noise in the A-10 tournament. And then BYU and South Florida. South Florida just got their hot streak ended by Tulsa. So I think they're going to have to win the conference tournament to really solidify their spot here. But I am going to go with BYU. I do like South Florida, but that's a tough matchup against the Cougars. Illinois, McNeese. Every time I feel like I've been going with McNeese, but this is a bad matchup for them. Illinois has been playing some great basketball. Almost knocked off the upset against Purdue in the midweek, but they really had a great season. So give me Illinois there. I think that McNeese against any other 4 seed, I would pick them to win, but this is a bad matchup that I see against Illinois. Gonzaga, Mississippi State. I'm going to go with Gonzaga. Gonzaga has really been playing well down the stretch. I think that this is a team that can go on a deep run. They continue to get hot. And then 3 seed Baylor, 14 seed Toledo. I am going to go with Baylor to win this matchup and move on to the second round. 7 seed Utah State, 10 seed Seton Hall. I'm going to continue to pull off the 7/10 upset here. I'm going to go with Seton Hall to advance against Utah State. And then we see Arizona and Montana. Give me Arizona. Arizona suffered a bad loss this past weekend against USC, so they'll have to bounce back in the Pac-12 championship to really solidify their seeding as a number 2 seed. If they win it and Tennessee goes out early, I could definitely see Arizona and Tennessee flip-flopping. We see Tennessee and Dayton in the second round, where I'm going to have Tennessee moving on to the Sweet 16. And then BYU and Illinois. This would be a fantastic matchup, but I am going to go with BYU to pull off that slight 5/4 upset. Going to continue the upsets. I'm going to go with Gonzaga, the 6th seed, to pull off the upset over 3 seed Baylor. And then I'm going to have no upset here. I think that Arizona survives another round and makes it to the Sweet 16. So we have Tennessee and BYU. Oh, man, this is tough. Like I mentioned, I just don't think that you're going to see a lot of 1 seeds advance here. Tennessee really been playing well, though, so it's hard for me to pick against them. So I am going to go with Tennessee. And then give me another upset in this West Coast battle. I'm going to go with 6 seed Gonzaga to make it to the Elite Eight. I think that Gonzaga's run ends here. Give me Tennessee to move on to the Final Four. So it's pretty chalky Final Four. You have a 2 seed so far and 2 1 seeds. Let's see if there's any chaos happening in the South, where we see number 1 overall seed Houston, where they face off against South Dakota State. I'm going to go with Houston to win that one. And then Northwestern and Colorado State. Give me Northwestern out of the Big Ten there. I think that Northwestern wins that one against the Rams. And here is where the upset happens. Give me Princeton out of the Ivy League against San Diego State. I think, Princeton is one of those teams, when it comes to March, they pull off an upset. They did it last year against number 2 seed Arizona. We'll see if they can do it again. And then we have 4 seed Alabama, 13 seed UC Irvine. I think that Alabama wins this one against UC Irvine. And then 6 seed Wisconsin, Colorado, Virginia. I don't really like any of these 2 teams in the play-in, so I am going to go with Wisconsin. I'm not really high on Wisconsin either. So this is pretty much just move on the lower seed and advance another round. Then we have 3 seed Duke and 14 seed Vermont. Give me Duke to move on in that one. I think that would be a great matchup, but Duke survives. And then Texas Tech and Drake. Drake is scary, but give me Texas Tech to move on to the second round. And then we see Creighton and Sam Houston in the 2 and the 15. Give me Creighton to advance to the next round. So let's go on to the second round matchups here in the South, where we have 1 seed Houston and 8 seed Northwestern. I'm going to go with Houston to advance once again. And then 12 seed Princeton, 4 seed Alabama. I don't think that Princeton makes it back-to-back years to the Sweet 16. Give me Alabama to win that matchup. And then 6 seed Wisconsin, 3 seed Duke. Like I mentioned, not too high on Wisconsin, but I am very high on Duke. So 7 seed Texas Tech, 2 seed Creighton. Give me Creighton to advance to the Sweet 16 as well. Creighton really playing well. They were up big against Villanova. Villanova made that push, but Creighton was able to pull off the game winner with 0.2 seconds left. Houston and Alabama, we saw this matchup, I believe, in last year's regular season, but I think that Houston gets their win here. Duke and Creighton, this is a tough matchup for me, but I'm going to go with Creighton here. A little chalky region here, but I'm going to go with the Blue Jays to advance, and then Houston and Creighton. I'm going to have another 1 seed. I'm probably not going to be doing this in the actual bracket. These are just too many 1 seeds, but I have 3 1 seeds advancing with UConn, Houston, and Tennessee. And then our first matchup, let's go to the Final Four. 2 seed Marquette, 1 seed Tennessee. I am going to have Tennessee advancing. And then in the battle of the 1 seeds, UConn and Houston, this would be a great matchup between the Huskies and the Cougars. But give me the Cougars to advance. And Tennessee and Houston would definitely be a great matchup as well. I'm going to stick with my trends here and go with the winner once again coming out of the Big 12 with the Houston Cougars cutting down the nets in Phoenix. So that is it for Tuesday's Bracketology update. Stay tuned to us here on the channel. We'll be having another one on Thursday as well, and that will probably be our last one before Selection Sunday. So definitely stay tuned into that. So we will see you all next time for the next Bracketology update.